Hello and welcome to Club Governance, a Lions University course brought to you by the USA Canada Lions Leadership Forum. My name is Past District Governor Wendy Kane, so you can disregard the reference at the bottom of your screens that says Mark Miller, and I'm really glad to have you here with us tonight. I would like to remind you that our webinar is being recorded for those who cannot participate live, or if you would like to review the material again at a later time. Just a couple of ways to let you know how you can engage in this particular webinar. We'll have some opportunities if you have any questions as we go along, or if our faculty person asks a question that you would like to respond to, you can type those in the questions pane, and we will see those and either relay the message or question for you and then respond. You can also raise your hand, the little hand that's on the left side of your control panel, and in that instance we will call on you and unmute your microphone so that you can share your comment or question verbally. So those are a couple of ways of participating this evening. Club Governance is course number 106, a required course for the Lions University Bachelor's Program that's designed to help Lions lead at the club level. The Bachelor's Program involves the completion of 10 required courses, those on the left side of your screen, and at least 5 of the elective courses shown on the right of your screen. And originally we did have this course scheduled for yesterday. I do want to thank those of you that came over and joined us. Sorry we had to make that cancellation, but appreciate your understanding and your participation here with us this evening. Just a little reminder of Lions University and how you can track your progress in the courses that are available. From lionsuniversity.org, you can look at the courses for each of our 3 programs: the Bachelor's Program for Leading of your Lions Club, the Master's Program for Leading at the district level, and we do not yet have courses up for the Doctorate Program. That will be coming later this fall. That will help from a train the trainer and helping teach adult learners. So that will come, but you can see a summary of that program as well as the details for our bachelor's and master's courses. You'll note this is not current. We have updates. This was just a screenshot several weeks ago, but you can see the notations made for courses that are available by video or those that have been scheduled and that you can participate in the webinar live. Lions will need to register for an account on lionsuniversity.org in order to access the courses that we have available once the webinars have been offered, as well as to take the courses and track your real-time progress with your own members account. This does require a different username and password than those of you who have registered at members.lionsforum.org. However, you can choose to use the same username and password if you wish. It's just a new registration. After you participate in this webinar, or in the future as you're watching a course on video, you can select the Mark as Completed button at the bottom of the course page, and then the link to the quiz module will appear. That will usually be another button that says Next Unit, or you can refresh your internet browser and it will make on the navigation for the courses the quiz unit available for you to select and proceed to take the quiz. You can monitor your own progress of your course completions by selecting My Account online on the Lions University page once you've logged in, and then you can select either My Bachelor's Program courses or My Master's Program courses. When you've completed a phase of the program, such as all of the required courses or at least 5 elective courses or the required experience, then you can select the option to apply for program credit, and that's the portion that we have on the right side of the screen. Select the appropriate phase that you would like to receive credit for, and then when you complete the relevant information in a fill-in box, we will verify that and update your profile with just those key phases on the members.lionsforum.org page. So that's the only part that we'll have the manual verification. We've been fortunate to be able to automate much of this process now so that you can track real-time progress. If you have not yet set up a profile or registered at the members.lionsforum.org, again, that's only necessary if you want to be able to have credit for completing all phases of the programs. If you're just interested in taking the webinar topics of interest to you, then you don't necessarily need to worry about doing this. But you can log in, or you can go to this page, members.lionsforum.org, and create an account by selecting Activate Membership. If you select Lions University Student, then that registration is free of charge. Also, if you register for the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum with a registration fee, then you will automatically be signed up as a Lions University student. From your members profile page here, you can see that the courses that you may have completed prior to March 1st are still maintained on this profile, and then we have the summary of the key requirements for each program, the ones that I mentioned that you would apply by phase. So this is how we'll be tracking progress in order to hopefully recognize as many Lions as possible at the 2015 USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum coming up in Grand Rapids, Michigan in September. But let's jump into our topic of the day, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Past District Governor Dennis Kelly, who will be sharing the topic of club governance with you. Past District Governor Dennis and I have been friends for several years, and we've had the opportunity to serve and train together, and I'm just really excited to have him, as many of our Lions University faculty, just excited to have them as a part of the program, and I know that our faculty and Dennis especially are interested in helping Lions get better and how we can help our clubs get better, and that's the focus of Lions University. And so Past District Governor Dennis, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Lion Wendy, for that great introduction. Good evening, Lions, and thank you for taking the time out of what I know is a very, very busy day for you to spend time with us. And thank you also for having the dedication to improve your leadership skills and abilities to be able to serve our great organization as well as we all do. This evening, we're going to be talking about club governance. And the objectives that we're going to deal with this evening will be understanding the definition of governance. What do we mean by that? And like many different definitions or terms, a lot of people think of things differently. So depending on where you're from or what your background is or what your experience is, governance may mean one thing to you and another thing to another. Going to understand the purpose of the Constitution and bylaws, because like any organization, we function with a Constitution and bylaws, which basically serves as our roadmap, if you will, to how we function, our policies, our procedures, and how we become effective. We're going to talk about defining the leaders' roles and responsibilities. Who are our leaders? What do they do? And what do they do to make our organization function very, very efficiently? Talk about the board of directors, because that is one of the aspects of club governance. And who are they? What is their role, and what power do they have? And some of you may be surprised to find out that they are more powerful than some of us would think, or if we are club presidents, then we would like them to be. And last, we're going to talk about club dynamics. We all are human beings. We all interrelate with each other, and how does that work in a club setting, especially if you're in a position where you want to start governing or running a club. So to begin with, I'd like to ask you all a question. And when you answer a question, when Lion Wendy will unmute you and you speak, if you could say who you are and what area of the country you're from, that would be greatly appreciated so we can get to know each other a little bit better. So who would like to give me what they consider their definition of governance? Just raise your hand and Lion Wendy will unmute you.
We'll also be taking submissions in the questions pane if you would like to respond there. But right now we don't have any brave lions who are raising their hand. There
I can't
we go.
believe that everyone is, oh, here we go. Everyone is shy out there.
That's right. I'm going to,
Okay.
Lion Barbara, just raise your hand. So we're going to unmute you, Lion Barbara, and then I'll share some of the other comments that come in, as well as anyone else who wants to raise their hand.
Lion Barbara from Bennett Watkins Lions Club in Colorado on the Eastern Plains. And my understanding of the definition of governance would be how the club is set up as far as rules, regulations, making sure that all parts of any of the Constitution and bylaws is carried out.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Anyone else? I think there was one comment that was in there, Wendy.
We have a couple. Lion Lee Ann from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, shared to build the strength of Lions and grow membership. And Lion Myrna shared leading a group.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being brave to actually start talking and participating. It's very, very difficult for an instructor doing one of these because you're used to being in front of a live audience, and that way you can actually pick on people if you have to and encourage people to participate. So this is, you know, almost like doing one of those telecom things where you can sit in the background and listen, and we really, really appreciate when you decide you want to participate with it. So let's look at the next slide, and let's take a look at what that definition is. The action or manner of governing a state or organization. It's really pretty simple when you think of it, but it's almost so simple that it could be interpreted in many different ways. Barbara, I think, had some interesting aspects to that. She made it a little more complex than this and related it definitely to Lions. Leanne talking about how to, you know, run an organization, grow membership. And Myrna basically brought it down to a more simple form, almost like this definition of just basically governing or running something. So now that we have a definition, and I think we can all agree that this is a working definition that we can use for the evening, let's move on to the next slide. So the Constitution and bylaws. How many of you, and if you just raise your hand, have a copy of your club's Constitution and bylaws?
Quite a few hands have gone up. We're maybe at about a third. Anyone else that? Okay, so I would say we're between a third and a half of our participants have a copy of their club Constitution and bylaws.
Okay, all right. So for those of you that don't, and hopefully for those of you that have it, it's very well worn and has little notations on the margin, and you use it a lot. For those of you that don't have a copy of the document, you can get it on the LCI website. And all you have to do is go into the website and go up into the search bar, put in Constitution and Bylaws, and it will pull up the latest edition for you, which I believe was revised July of 2014. And that Constitution and Bylaws exists there, and you can click on the different versions and come up with the club form so that you don't have to go out and invent your own. If you look at the Constitution and Bylaws, it's about 39 pages long, and it covers every aspect of our organization. It is the roadmap, or our GPS, if you will, that helps us run and organize not only our large organization, but all the way down to our club level. So the easiest thing to do is for a club to take that and review it and adopt it. And a new chartered club, we just chartered a club here in Minnesota, and the second meeting was reviewing the Constitution and Bylaws and agreeing to adopt that as the Constitution and Bylaws for the club. It can be amended. You may run into a situation where you say, well, you know what, we really don't want to do the elections exactly like this. We don't feel that we need to do a secret ballot. And so you could put in an amendment saying that a majority vote would be considered sufficient. However, if you're doing any amendments of your Constitution and bylaws, remember you cannot do anything that would circumvent the Lions Club's International Constitution and bylaws. So you can't go in there and get really, really independent and frisky and say, well, you know what, we're going to change our name. Instead of being Lions Clubs International, we're going to be Lions Clubs Local. That just doesn't work, so you can't do that. So if you have any little jailhouse lawyers in your clubs that want to get really, really ambitious with this, remind them that yes, you can amend it, it can be flexible, but it cannot circumvent LCI's Constitution and bylaws.
Lion Dennis?
Yes, I am, Wendy.
Before you move on, I just two things. One, I wanted to let you know and let our participants know that I added a link to the LCI standard form for the club constitution and bylaws as a supplementary material or resource that's on the course page, so you don't have to search too far for that.
Excellent.
But can we take a quick moment and ask Lions to raise their hands again if your club has customized your club constitution and bylaws, if you're aware that your club is using anything different than the standard form, would you just raise your hand there? I'm kind of interested in how many clubs have done that, if you're aware of that. So we have two hands raised. So the majority of our Lions clubs are using the standard form version that LCI has. So that would be a valuable resource for all of our Lions to be familiar with.
Definitely, and thank you for that. That will make it a lot easier for them if they go searching for that thing. The other thing that's in there is our Code of Ethics and our purpose. And the Lions Code of Ethics is something that every Lion should be very, very familiar with, because it does guide us in our daily life as a Lion. And quite often, if you have a club meeting and you say, okay, who can tell us what the Code of Ethics are? People kind of look at you with that deer in the headlights look like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know we had one. Something that you might want to do at a club meeting is take each paragraph in the Code of Ethics and recite one at the meeting, so people get familiar with the Code of Ethics. The same thing with the purpose, same thing with our vision statement and our mission statement. The other thing that the Constitution and bylaws does is it defines the roles and responsibilities of the officers and the board of directors. So if someone has a question, well, what can a president really do? Or what is a secretary supposed to do, or a treasurer, right? That's all spelled out in the Constitution and bylaws. So it's something you definitely need to get familiar with. Next slide, please. So who's in charge? How many of you, if you could raise your hand, have been club presidents? Lynn has, I can see that.
Thank you.
How
Quite a
many
few
hands are we
hands
getting,
cropped
Wendy?
up. We have probably, out of 29 people, it looks like maybe 20 of them. So quite a few of our participants have been club president.
Okay, that's really encouraging. Now we're going to see whether you did it the right way or not. Could be revealing to you when we start talking more about this. So before we go back one, please. So you asked the question, who is in charge? We have the club president, we have the board of directors. So what we're going to talk about is who really has the power in the club, because that's basically what governance comes down to. All right, who has the power to make decisions and to influence the way things are done in the club? Okay, Wendy, next one, please. So let's talk about the president. The president of the club is the chief executive officer, the CEO. All right, person is usually elected for a one-year term. However, there are several clubs here in my district, 5M6 in Minnesota, where the club president serves for 2 years. I was the president for 2 years, and the main reason for that was that there was change that needed to be made. The first year, just kind of getting my feet wet and understanding what was going on. The second year was really effective because we did make some definitive change in the club to the benefit of the club. The president presides over all meetings of the club. That is, any regular meeting, any special meeting, and the Board of Governors meeting. The president also has the authority to issue the call for all meetings. So if something's going on and it's in between a regular meeting and a board meeting, the president can issue a call for the members and the board to get together and address an issue. The president is responsible for appointing any standing and special committees. And that's another thing that you'll find in the Constitution and bylaws. If you're wondering, what kind of committee should we have in our club? Then look at your Constitution and bylaws. It's going to give you a list of what is recommended for standing and special. That does not mean that you can't add something. You might decide we want a committee that will deal with community interaction, and that person or community would be responsible, like in the Club Excellence process, for finding out needs that exist in the community and reporting back to the club. The club president also oversees the committee chairpersons, so he's responsible. If any of you are old enough to remember Harry Truman, President of the United States, and his famous saying, "The buck stops here." Well, that's the way it is with the president. He has the authority, or she has the authority, to oversee the committee chairpersons. They report to the president. To provide for regular elections. And I think this is something that people don't understand. They know it's in the Constitution and bylaws and that we have to have an election every year, but they don't realize that the president is actually responsible to make sure that happens. And most importantly, I feel, is to participate as a member of the District Governor's Advisory Committee. The club presidents, along with the secretary and the zone and region chairs, all are part of the District Governor's Advisory Committee. They should be meeting on at least a quarterly basis, and it's the one way that the district governor and the leadership team at the district can find out what's going on with the clubs and also find out what they need to do to be leaders for the clubs and make the clubs strong and successful. The bottom bullet is the most important. You need to learn to delegate. If you have not been a club president and you are very fortunate to become a club president and you think you can do it all yourself, you are going to get very, very tired very, very quickly. We have a new charter president of our new club, and she's very, very ambitious, luckily very organized. But she feels that as president, she should be making all the decisions. She should be doing all the things. And it's very obvious after just a month that she's starting to get a little frazzled on the edges. So we've had some conversations with her about delegating and learning how to delegate. Next slide, please.
Lion Dennis, we have a question. That's okay. I've got a hand raised by
Yes.
Lion Elizabeth, so I'm going to unmute her. Lion Elizabeth?
Yes.
Did you have a question or a comment?
No, I'm still trying to figure this out.
Okay, sorry about that. I just saw it pop up just a moment ago. So you can click your hand again and it will go down the same way that it went up. Or so if you want to give that a shot. All right, Lion Dennis, there you go.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about the board of directors. Who is part of the board of directors? And usually when I do presentations in front of a live audience, I like to have what they call builds on my slides so everyone can't see everything all at once. Kind of leads in to people paying more attention to one bullet, not looking ahead, and also lets you build a little bit of suspense with the audience, which is pretty cool. Okay, automatically the president, of course. We just said the president is the chief executive officer, so of course that person's going to be on the board of directors. The immediate past president is automatically on the board. Vice presidents. Some clubs have 1, 2, or 3 vice presidents. Larger clubs usually have more vice presidents. Some of our smaller clubs, 20 members, 18 members, may have just 1 or 2. Of course, every club will have a secretary, and the responsibility of the secretary are legion. We all know that. Anyone that has been a secretary, and I've been a secretary and a treasurer in my past life, understand that without a strong secretary in your club, you're really, really going to have some issues. They are kind of like the glue that holds the secretary together. But what we don't want to see is secretaries that are secretaries for life. I was talking to a secretary in my district the other day, and very proudly told me that he had been a secretary for 36 years. I think that's a little bit of a problem that we have there. 3 years maybe, get an apprentice in there, give some other people a chance to take on an office, secretary, treasurer, whatever. Allows for growth in the club and also is great for new members when they come in. They see opportunity rather than the same people being in the same position forever. Treasurer, of course, handling all the finances for us, keeping us out of trouble as far as any type of audit or anything goes with our financial records. Some clubs have lion tamers and tail twisters, and we've actually found some clubs that don't. The lion tamer, of course, is the person that takes care of the paraphernalia that we own, the banner, the gavel, the bell, the flag, etc. And the tail twister's role is to promote fun and good fellowship in our meetings by the use of fines, judiciously applied. Membership chairperson. This is another category that we see sometimes not filled, but every single club should have a membership chairperson because such an important thing to us to grow our membership, but even more importantly, to retain members once we get them. And then last but not least, the directors. Most clubs have 4 directors. The 2 directors are elected for a 2-year term, 2 are elected for a 1-year term. The important thing about this when you do your configuration is always make sure that your board is an odd number of individuals. That way, if you're doing voting, you don't have to worry about constant ties. So that way you'll be all set. If you're looking for more information on club presidents or board of directors and what we've talked on right now, when you're doing your bachelor program electives, you're going to see course 121, which deals with club president in a lot more depth than what we've talked about here. And course 125, your board, your team, which will give you a lot more information of the board of directors. Okay, Wendy, let's go on. So what does the board do? The board is responsible for shaping club policies. Anything technically that comes before the club should be coming through the board. And the board usually meets. Some clubs meet before the general membership meeting. Some boards usually meet, I'd say, once a month. Club usually meets twice a month. The board at least meets once a month. The board is also responsible for the execution of club policies, and this is something that most people don't realize. They think that it's the president that makes sure that club policies get executed, but actually that authority lies with the board. And when you think about it, the board, by approving a policy, basically is setting the path, if you will, for that policy to be executed for the club. No money can be spent without the board authorizing it. So the president can't decide, oh, I really like to LCIF, and that earthquake just happened in Nepal, so we're just going to send a $1,000 check over there to help those people out. Great idea and definitely needed, but cannot be done by the president. It has to be authorized by the board. The board also arranges for the auditing of the club books. And if you are keeping your club pure financially, your books should be audited every single year. You don't have to go out and get a CPA to do that. It can be 2 members of the club appointed by the board that will sit down with the treasurer, review the financial records, the books of the club, and make sure that everything is on the up and up and everything's okay. Especially that we have 2 accounts, that we have one for activities, one for our charity account or admin account, rather, and we don't mix those. That money that we raise from the public, of course, goes right back to the public. And our admin funds are used for our daily club expenses. The board also is responsible for getting the bank, appointing the bank. Where are we going to open our checking or savings accounts? Where are we going to keep the money? The board is responsible for appointing a surety or bonding for the club offices. The bonding is a necessary thing. A lot of clubs don't do this, but we're all human beings, unfortunately, and unfortunately we have had occasion in the past where people have, for some reason or another, gotten into a bind financially and have used Lions funds to help themselves out. So the bonding will protect the club for anything that happens. This last bullet really is something that a lot of people don't know about the board, but the board has the power to modify, override, or rescind any action of any club officer. So when you think about it, the power, like we said earlier, who's in charge? The club president of the board of directors. Looking at these responsibilities, looking at that last bullet, it's very obvious that the board of directors is in charge. club president can say or suggest a policy or even say that this is what we're going to do at a meeting, but the board can override that and rescind it after it's actually been made a policy and moving forward. So there's a lot of power in the board, and I would maintain that when we talk about club governance, it is the board that is really effectively governing the club. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts. What about the members? We've got how many people on the board, roughly? You know, you've got your 4 directors, you've got your president, your vice president. So roughly, you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 14 people. You have a fairly large club, 40, 45 people. What about the other people? What are they doing? Are they just sitting there quietly, you know, agreeing with anything that happens? Do they have a say in club policy? Definitely they do. There are certain ways that clubs handle this, different ways. I think it varies by area, by district, how it's approached. We have a club here in Minnesota, the Stillwater Lions Club. It's a fairly large club, 88 members, and it's been around for quite a while. It looks a little bit like a Rotary Club. They meet once a week. They meet at lunchtime. Majority of the members are male, and I'd say the average demographic probably in late 50s, 60s. And they are trying to reinvent themselves. They are struggling because they do a lot of check writing. They don't do as much community service as they want. And so they've come up with some novel approaches. One of the approaches they're looking at is only having the board meet, say, once every quarter. And instead of the board actually formulating all the policy for the club, let the members do that. So whether it's legal or not by the Constitution and bylaws, that has to be determined. But they're trying to find out different ways, different approaches to get the members involved. What we've done in the past in clubs I've been a member of is we've done a thing called board briefs. And you don't want to do a lot of business at your regular membership meeting. You want to have more entertaining things going on, speakers, informative speakers. You want to have fun. And it's much easier to get and do the business of the club at the board meeting and then report back to the members. But a lot of members don't come to the meetings. They can't make it for one reason or another, but they're still active and involved in the club. So we would put together a thing called board briefs, and we would send that out by email to all the club members. So everyone would know what the board was doing. And do the members have the final say? Technically, if you look at the Constitution and bylaws, if the board approves it, it is club policy. So how do the members make their voice heard? Anyone can go to a board meeting. It's not closed. It's not just the board of directors that can be there. So members can go, especially if there's issues happening that they're very concerned about. They can speak. They may not be able to vote, but they can speak. And it's very, very important that the members be encouraged to know what's going on in the club and make their voice known. The other thing they can do is they can run to be on the board, to be a director, to be an officer, if they're very, very strongly concerned about the direction the club is going. So there are ways for the members to have their say in what's happening with the club. Next slide, please. Club dynamics. To work together, the board, the president, the members, you have to constantly build consensus. It's very, very important that there is open communication between the members of the club and the officers of the club. It's very, very important that people know that their voice can be heard. And the challenge to a president to govern a club, knowing that the authority of the club lies on the board of directors, is to build this consensus. And that's where you need to know and understand who your members are. You need to know and understand how they communicate. You need to be able to listen to your members. You need to be able to actually talk to them and find out what is on their mind. How do they feel about certain issues? Keep them involved. Because if it becomes a situation where it's just the club president and the board running the club and no one else has a voice or a say in it, then you're going to find members leaving. They're going to get dissatisfied. They're going to say, you know, I just really don't need to be a part of this anymore. So it's very important to keep them involved and to build that consensus. You need to decide when to discuss business. Some clubs it works that they do business at their general membership meeting. Most clubs find that that really turns people off. That people come, they would rather hear an interesting speaker. They would rather be informed about things going on in the community. They enjoy the fellowship of being together, and they want to know what the club is doing, but they would rather see that business done at the board meeting. And this is a personal decision for each club. It's something that you need to decide with your officers and your members and talk to them and say, what do you want in a meeting? What do you want to see happen here? And if the majority of the club wants a particular direction, then that's what should happen. Decide who is the final decision maker or makers. If you look strictly at the way the club is set up, the board of the Constitution and bylaws, and the roles of the president or the roles of the board of directors, it seems very, very cut and dry that once the board makes a decision, that is it. Nothing is going to change. So how many people think that that is the way it is? Or in your club right now, that's the way the club is being run? Or is there more flexibility? Anyone want to voice any opinions on that? I see something from Martin.
Lion Wayne raised his hand, and Lion Bless, you had raised your hand a while back. I think you may have a question. If you don't have a question, hit the little button with the hand with the little red down arrow, and that will lower your hand. Otherwise, I'll come back to you when we have a pause for questions. But let me unmute Lion Wayne.
Hi, hi. I'm Lion Wayne from Indiana, and I'm the coming in. I'm the first vice district governor this year. And
Hi, Lion Wayne.
In our club, the board of directors does it. I mean, runs everything. I shouldn't say they run it, but we have 4 meetings. We have 4 meetings a month normally. Sometimes we have 5. The first meeting is always the well, I should say we have 4 meetings on Wednesdays, and then we have one the first Monday of the month for the board of directors. And we discuss all the business there, and then our first meeting in the month on Wednesday, we discuss what we read the board minutes and everything else like that. So we also encourage all of our members to attend the board meeting. You know, it's not a closed session, and we always ask for input on what they want to. I've never seen I mean, you're right about, I think some people would find it weird that the board is actually in charge. Most of the times that I've seen there, and I've been a member for 8 years of this club, and I've never seen them really override the president unless, and I've never seen that happen. So, you know, I think that the president does, the board works with the president unless he really steps out of bounds. And that'd be all I'd have to say.
Yeah, I would agree, Lion Wayne, and I think that's the consensus thing that you see happening.
Lion Lynn has her hand raised. Lion Lynn? Okay, I'm gonna mute you and put your hand back down. If you'd like to share something, you can raise your hand again. Lion Zane, coming to you next.
Well, I don't. Is my hand up? It should be down.
Okay. We have lots of people exploring and working with the hand raising today. So the green, I think there's a green up arrow when you want to raise your hand, and then there's a red down arrow that you can press if your hand is already raised and you want to lower it. So that might help a couple folks. And Lion Lynn has her hand back up again. So I'm coming back to you, Lion Lynn. Hello? Okay, how about Lion Sharon?
Well, I was membership director. I'm in the state of Florida, and I was membership chair for 1 year, and I attended the board meetings, and the board minutes were distributed to all of the club members afterwards.
Okay, that's good. So, in your opinion, or from your experience, what you saw, is it the president who seems to be running it, or was it obvious that the board was making the final decisions?
It's quite obvious that the president can bring something up, but the whole board has to agree to it.
Okay, good. And then after that happened, was that brought before your membership for an additional vote, or was it just presented as this is what the board has decided and what we're doing?
Most of the time it was brought up at the meetings that the board has decided to do things.
Okay, cool. Good. Thank you for sharing that.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you. Lion Zane, coming back to you.
My hand it should be down.
All right. So if it's up, then it will have the red arrow down because that would be the next action. So if you want it to be down, then because a couple other folks are having that issue today as well, then
My red arrow is pointing down.
Right. So if you press that, then it'll put your hand down, and then it'll have an up arrow when you want to raise your hand up. So I think it's counterintuitive perhaps, and I will do better on future webinars to add that with the little images in the introduction, so that might help some folks. So thank you. Sorry about that. We did have a couple folks that had shared some information in the questions pane. Let me highlight some of those. Lymira shared that members of her club make the suggestions and then they're taken up with the board of directors first and then back to the club. Lion David shared that the board has the final decision in his club. Lion Gary indicated in his club major decisions are made by the entire club versus the board of directors, especially if it involves finances. Leanne was reinforcing one of the points that you had made, Lion Dennis, that she's been trying to help her club understand. She has members who want to serve, but the ones who've had the position for a long time don't want to give it up. So that goes back to your longevity of the secretary, and if you have any suggestions for how to get them to adjust. And it's not just secretaries. We've had other officers that have done that in our district as well. Do you have any suggestions there before I move on to the next comments?
Yeah, Leanne, what I recommend is basically, and it's a change in club culture, and you have to have, we go back to the consensus, you have to have support for this to have it happen, is you do two things. First of all, you agree as a club to put in what I call a sunset rule. And when someone takes over an office, or when you bring new members in, or you want to change someone who's been in the office for a long time, you develop the policy and people agree to it, that the sunset rule is in effect. So when you become a secretary, a treasurer, committee chair, anything like that, that we've agreed that that position will be there for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, another lion will be taking over. So they know up front that it's, you're not getting crowned for life here. The second thing is, and this is, of course, is all predicated on having members and getting new members in your club and growing your club, is that when a new member comes in, you ask them, what's your interest? What do you like doing? Here are all the things that we do. Here are the positions that we have. Here's our offices. Here's our committees. Which of these do you feel you'd be interested in getting involved with? And they may pick one or two and then ask them, okay, is something that you think eventually you'd probably like to run it? You'd like to be a committee chair? And there are some people that said, nope, that's okay. I just want to be an ordinary lion and just work in the trenches, and I'm okay with that. But there are people, and these are our future leaders, that are ambitious and say, yeah, I think if I got a handle on that, I could do it. So you make that person the apprentice, and you go to the person that's the committee chair or the secretary and treasurer and say, okay, this is Lion Diane. She's new. She really, really has a strong desire to be a secretary for our club. And she's going to be your assistant, if you want to use that word, or apprentice, or whatever. And we're going to ask you to, teach her the ropes so that at the end of your 3 years, she can take over for you. The other thing, and if you're trying to make this change and you have lions that, in the case that I ran into, this person's been a secretary for 36 years, it's going to be an ego thing sometimes, or a loss of power. So you try to do it in a position to say, Lion Gary, you've been secretary for 8 years here. You do an absolutely phenomenal job. Our club would not be in the position it is without you and all the work you do. But it is really so important that we allow other members, we have new members joining that also want to do this. If you could be a mentor for one of our new members and teach them all the amazing tricks that you have and the skills that you have that's made you such a great award-winning secretary for all these years, we really would like to be able to open up a little bit and give other people a chance. So how would you feel about being a mentor and taking on Lion Jim and having Lion Jim work with you for a couple of years, and then, we really think that you'd be very valuable doing other things in the club also with your abilities. We'd like you to move on to something else. So, Leanne, it's not guaranteed that that would work, but those are approaches that we've used that, sometimes are successful.
Thank you, Lon Dennis. I was thinking as you were talking, I like the sunset rule idea. It made me think of another organization I'm involved with, that the club president cannot serve 2 years in a row. And I actually find that a little bit of a disadvantage, because my Lions Club, like yours, went through a stretch where many of our presidents had a 2-year term, and at least, as I was coming up through the ranks, I really needed the second year to do well after I kind of figured out what I was supposed to do as a club president during the first year. And so it's a little bit of a burden from that standpoint, with if you can only do it 1 year and then it turns over to somebody else, and then maybe you can cycle back through. We do have a couple more folks that have responded in the questions pane, but let me go back to Elizabeth first.
Good evening. It's Elizabeth from Lion Elizabeth from Pennsylvania. I just wanted to make a comment in regard to how the president and the board of directors works up here in my club in Dickersburg. The president seems to take on different hats at different times. In one particular instance, we had the president work as a facilitator, bringing an idea to the board of directors. The board of directors agreed on a particular, issue X, and we brought it to the club for a vote. But some of the club members didn't understand what was going on. That sparked some questions. Needless to say, that particular issue was tabled, but it enabled the club to form a temporary committee to explore that particular issue at hand, and eventually, the club actually had the final say and actually had an active role in solving that particular issue. So it's sort of like I think the president and the board of directors act differently in different situations, but it is a collaborative effort, needless to say.
Yeah, that's very good, Elizabeth. And, that gives you a clear indication of the club dynamics, where you rely on your committee and your committee chairs to work through an issue, come up with solutions, present those solutions to the board. The board has the ability to evaluate the solutions that are recommended, basically give thumbs up or thumbs down, and then can execute it. But that's a great way of getting your members involved and making them feel that they're part of the decision process, that it isn't something that just the leadership team is doing all the time. That's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Couple other items that folks had shared. Lion Marina shared all minutes of meetings and board meetings are emailed to all members, so they're aware of all the business that goes on. Lion David shared that his board can only spend up to $1,000. Any amount over that must be approved by the club, even if it is in the budget that's already been previously approved. So that helps keep his club aware of transactions, particularly the larger ones.
And I would assume that that's in the Constitution and bylaws.
And
at least I would hope it would be.
Yeah, that gets to a question I want to ask you after I highlight these last couple of items. Let's see. Lion Melissa shared that her club board makes recommendations to the club membership, but that the club membership has the final say. And they also have a policy of working yourself out of a job in documenting, I'm assuming whether it be an officer or committee chair positions, documenting things so that they're prepared in case a worst case scenario happens. And that's something that I've heard a lot about and we've talked about in my club and in other venues, but we have not taken the action to do that. And that's a super idea, I think.
That's a very, very good idea. Actually, each you can develop, and if anyone wants it, we've developed it when I was district governor in Virginia, position descriptions for district cabinet and club officers, so that when someone is asked to run for a position, they know up front exactly what they're getting into. So it's not they're not just a name in a book or a name on a wall shot. So I think, go ahead.
I was going to ask if you'd be willing to send me the club officer position descriptions, and I will add them on our course page as an additional or supplementary resource. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I will do that for you.
Thank you. Lion Keith, he shared that his club is a small one and that the general membership votes on most matters. And Lion Lynn shared that the club votes on items after the board presents it to the whole club. So it's considered by the board of directors first. And from a sunset rule standpoint, she has been the club treasurer for 5 years because no one else wants to do it. So I can appreciate that as well. The question, to thank you all for weighing in either verbally or in the questions pane. A question I had for you, Lion Dennis, and maybe this goes to the Constitution and bylaws, but we had talked about the board being responsible for setting policies. And what I've seen happen within my club and also at our district level is there's lots of unwritten rules, kind of more like things that have always happened that way, so people consider them policies, but they're not written down. And when new people come in to a club, or maybe somebody, even if it's not new, I've had this happen after I've been in the group for a couple of years. Something crops up, and all of a sudden you're public enemy number one because you didn't follow the unwritten policy that you wouldn't otherwise have been expected to know about. So do you have any suggestions for either gathering up all of those historical decisions to help newer members and refresh longer term members, or anything else kind of even from a club dynamic standpoint of that can really turn people off?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Wendy, because we do get new members coming in, and you have clubs that are older in these quote unwritten rules. Well, everyone knows that's the way we do things around here. That happens. The solution to that basically is everyone is familiar with, and when they join the club, they get a copy of the club Constitution and bylaws. That you have one person that you appoint as you could call it the parliamentarian, or someone that would be in charge of reviewing those Constitution and bylaws. In bigger clubs, it's usually a committee, and incorporating any of these unwritten rules, if you will. So if you took the time to step back for a minute and reviewed your Constitution and bylaws, then looked at club policy. Some clubs have a policy manual, and look at the policies and see if they are represented in the Constitution and bylaws. If not, then the committee can make recommendations to amend the Constitution and bylaws to put these things in, so then they are documented, and it's not, well, that's the way we've always done it. The other good thing about that is sometimes you look at something and review it, and it may have been a good policy 15 years ago, but times have changed, dynamics have changed in the club, and it's really not a good thing anymore. So you can codify these in your Constitution and bylaws, remove the confusion, and also make sure that you're up to date with what should be current policy.
All right. Thank you. And Lion Dave shared a good suggestion that kind of can go in conjunction with that, of keeping a club motion log so that you can have a quick reference back to decisions that had been made previously. So thank you there. And I had overlooked Lion Bless, who had hand raised. So I'm going to unmute you and see if you still have a comment. I apologize for that.
Oh, yes. I just I'm new to the club, board member, and I'm just confused, or I need direction to understand what the role of the directors are.
So you are trying to figure out what the role of the directors are?
Yeah, in the whole scheme of things.
Okay. Well, like we mentioned earlier, the board of directors is responsible. If you look at, that slide, or you can go back and review that.
No, not the board of directors, but the director positions.
Oh, the directors. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Not the board of directors.
Yep.
I do understand the board of, but the directors, what specifically are their roles in the whole scheme of things?
Think of the directors as basically consultants to the club. All right, they are regular club members that have decided to serve as members of the board of directors. When they become a member of the board, then they get the voting privilege of being able to vote. And if we go by a interpretation of the way the club is run, then the board's responsibility is developing all those policies and procedures. So what your directors do is it gives ordinary Lions who are not an officer of the club, or like the ones we had listed before, the ability to be on the board and help make and establish policy for the club. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Do they run committees also? Do they lead, or they're just, so?
Technically, and once again, this depends on the size of the club. Small clubs, you can be very challenged where, I've seen some small clubs where they don't have committees because they have 14 members and everyone is doing everything. But technically, in a normal size, let's say 20 to 30 member club, those directors could have a committee chair. They could act as that. Or they could just be a director. They could just be that ordinary Lion that sits on the board and acts as the voice, if you will, of the other Lions in the club. So if you're looking at club dynamics and you're an ordinary Lion, you want to get something accomplished, or you want to push something through the board, if that club's situation is the board is the final decider, then you would go to one of those directors and say, hey, Dave, I've got this idea, I've got this policy, and I really would like you to help me get this through the board. What can you advise, or how can you represent my voice at the board meeting for me?
Yeah. So now these directors really kind of represent the members. So they are the go-to person. They're the go-to person.
Yep, definitely. Right. They could be that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bless. Dennis,
okay, Lion Wendy, shall we continue?
We got a couple more hands raised. How about I'll let you wrap up, and then we'll circle back and see if there are other questions that we can hit before we close.
Sounds good. Okay, continuing with club dynamics, keep an open mind. This is so important, and this really affects us getting and retaining members. Someone comes in as a new member, they are really excited, they are thrilled that they've been invited to be a Lion, and now they're part of our great organization. They come up with some great ideas, and it's, oh no, we've done that before and it didn't work. Oh no, we've never done that, we're just not going to do it. I don't know if any of you have seen the YouTube video on the Lions Pancake Breakfast, but if you haven't seen it, go on to YouTube and just put in Lions Pancake Breakfast. It's an incredible, funny thing that was done by Second City for LCI. And basically, it's a big spoof about just what I said. Now, this is the way we've always done it. Nothing's going to happen differently. They don't welcome new ideas. They don't want new ideas. But if we really want to grow as a club, grow as an organization, to be strong and do what we're supposed to do, which is provide service to our communities, we need to keep an open mind. We need to welcome new ideas. And bottom line, we need to have fun. When people are enjoying what they're doing, they're enjoying their membership in Lions, they're having fun, people tend to want to come back and continue to do that. This new club that we've just charted at the end of April, I'm a part of that club, and I really, really enjoy it. The average demographic is 48 years old, and their energy level is just amazing, and they have fun. They have fun being Lions. They have fun doing community service, and they just relish the fact of being able to do that. And that's what keeps your club going. That's part of your club dynamics, creating an atmosphere where people feel that the time they're giving is time well spent. It's appreciated, and they enjoy not only the camaraderie but the self-satisfaction of being a great Lion and serving their community. Okay, next slide, Wendy. So, review our objectives. I think we agreed on a definition of governance, and thanks you for the ones that were brave enough to start off the conversation. We began almost an hour ago. And hopefully we all understand the purpose of the Constitution and bylaws. And if you don't have a copy, please get a copy and take it to your club meeting and ask, do we have a Constitution and bylaws? When's the last time it was reviewed? And as Wendy brought up, you know, are there any things that we do that aren't represented in that Constitution and bylaws? Hopefully you have a better idea of the roles and responsibilities of your club leaders, especially the board of directors and what their function is, and that you have an understanding of what club dynamics means. It's basically how we work together, whether we're a club president, on the board, a regular member, to do what we do best, which is serving our communities and being great Lions. Okay, Wendy, anything else we need?
Couple things. We have a few hands raised, so I'm going to remind you one more time, if you would like to speak, then your hand is up if you see the little red arrow going down. If you need to lower your hand, then press the button with the little red down arrow, and it will be ready to go up next time or something. A couple things. Lion Dave did offer to share a copy or a sample of the motion log that we talked about, and so we'll add that to the resources. And if someone has used a club policy manual that you would be willing to send to me at the email address that your webinar registration came to, we'd like to add a sample of that, or I can go in search of one, but if your club uses one and it's pretty functional for you, we'll add it to the resources page. We'll take out any references that need to be for it to be neutral or appropriate. And I'll also add that to the discussion forum on the lionsforum.org website. That way you don't have to keep checking back for this page. If you want to continue the discussion of the discussion forum, then we'll be able to do that here. A couple people that we have not heard from since we're running up to our hour. I'd like to get a couple of different voices before we wrap up. And Lion Wayne, your hand is raised. Lion Wayne?
Can you hear me?
Just a little bit. You're
Okay, my hand wasn't raised. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, my hand wasn't raised. I just raised it again. But just a good seminar. I just getting people to give up some of the positions that we have, like secretary. I know in our club, we just had assets leaving the club. We had 5 people leave because we had a secretary that's been there for like 25 years, and she wouldn't give it up. So it can really cause some real problems in a club. So I like the idea of this of giving them a definite time, and I'd like to put out there sometimes. Some people use the excuse that, you know, nobody can do it as good as I can, or I'm only doing it because nobody else do it. I heard that before. Sometimes that happens because we don't get out of the way and let somebody do it. You know, I've only been a Lion for 8 years, and now I'm the first vice district governor. If some people hadn't moved out of the way for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So, just food for thought.
Very well said, Wayne. Very well said.
Thank you. And Lion David.
Yes, I just want to respond to the director question. I'm a past district governor, and when I do installation and install officers, I tell the directors that they are the eyes and ears of the club members, and what they hear out in the membership they should bring to the board of directors. And that's all I have to say.
That's very good, David. I will remember that one.
Thank you very much. We appreciate everybody's participation in the webinar, and also I really appreciate, Lion Dennis, your preparation and carrying us forward with this course. A couple of items as we wrap up. Whoops, sorry, I got ahead of myself. First of all, our next webinar will be next Tuesday evening, May 19th. That will be public speaking, and that is a master's program elective. Again, the master's program is supporting leadership at the district level, but if you're interested in the topic, you're welcome to attend that course, and we'll be back on Tuesdays going forward. If you want to continue the conversation, or as you're experiencing life in your club and you have a question about governance, or if you're interested in the resources that we've talked about with the policy manual, the motion, the club motion log, and the position descriptions, that will be added on the course page for course number 106, and it will be also on the discussion forum. So I would encourage you, if you have questions as you're experiencing life in your club about governance, ask the question on the discussion forum, and the collective wisdom of our group and our faculty will be able to help one another. And let's see, most importantly, in order to get credit for the course, if you're trying to complete the bachelor's program, is to go back to Lions University on the course page. At the bottom of the page, you can click that button that says Mark as completed, and the unit will become available for you to take the quiz. All right, I'll leave that called up. Again, thank you again so much, Lion Dennis, for your help in preparation for Lions University, and thank you all for participating. As you leave,
You're quite welcome.
Thanks. Don't forget to go to your control panel and select File and Exit Webinar from the options there, and we'll hope to see you on a future webinar.